Welcome back to Dead Reckoning, the Human Life Expectancy channel. In recent videos, we've talked about the history of HLE and the things that kill us today. Today, we'll explore how HLE varies across our population and discuss a top-level strategy for increasing HLE going forward. Today's global HLE is 73.4 years, but it varies greatly by gender, region, and wealth. Women tend to live 2 to 8 years longer than men, depending upon the country, and females aged over 100 outnumber males by over 5 to 1. There's a number of potential reasons for this. For example, differences in chromosomes and hormones between men and women have been shown to affect longevity. A recent study suggests that women live longer because they have 2 copies of the same sex chromosome, their double X chromosomes. Apparently, the second copy offers a backup in case one is damaged. Also, among other things, men carry more fat on their internal organs, leading to increased incidence of cardiovascular disease. But biological differences can't be the whole story here. Otherwise, we wouldn't see such large differences across countries and over time. So what else might be going on? Several things. We know that child mortality is higher for boys than for girls, fewer women smoke than men, although they're catching up, and maternal mortality has fallen dramatically in most countries. In addition, since infectious diseases affect young girls more than young boys, when these diseases were cured, it boosted HLE for women more than for men. For all these reasons, it seems likely that women will continue to live longer than men. HLE also varies significantly by country. For example, Hong Kong and Japan have high life expectancies of just over 85, and the current U.S. life expectancy is 79 years, while Nigeria, Chad, and the Central Republic of Africa have life expectancies of only between 54 and 56. Many factors drive this dispersion, including wealth, childhood mortality, and the availability of health care. Today, about 2 billion people live on $2 or less a day, and many diseases that kill the poor by the millions don't impact the rich. In 2019, life expectancy at birth in the least developed countries lagged 7.4 years behind the global average, largely due to persistently high levels of child and maternal mortality, as well as violence, conflict, and the continuing impact of the HIV epidemic. So, what might be helpful as a strategy to enhance global HLE? We've been so successful in expanding HLE that we should surely continue to leverage the things that caused us to double it since 1900. As we covered in our video on that topic, 3 factors led to the doubling of HLE. The first was increased global wealth and the education and empowerment of women to reduce childhood mortality. The second was new technologies and medical advances. And the third was advances in public health, including focusing on behavioral changes, such as quitting smoking, avoiding excessive drinking, and eating healthy diets, and strengthening global health institutions. There's good reason to think that we could make even more rapid progress with these in the future. As we noted in the How Will Exponential Human Population Growth End video, increased wealth and education and empowerment of women are driving unprecedented reductions in fertility and childhood mortality around the globe. On the technology side, whereas vaccines, pasteurization, and antibiotics drove the doubling of HLE since 1900, new exponentially advancing technologies such as personal sensors, liquid biopsies, or genetic and epigenetic tests could provide early warning and detection of NCDs when they're much easier to cure, and genetic technologies and cell therapies that offer the prospect of universal vaccines and curing CDs, NCDs, and even potentially aging itself. Future videos will explore these technologies in detail. There's also an opportunity to accelerate public health efforts by allocating resources based on their impacts on HLE. As a first step, with a clearer dead reckoning of how we die today, we can prioritize how much thought, time, effort, and resources to fight different causes of death in proportion to their likelihoods and average ages of occurrence. At a top level, here's how that might work. For example, we've noted that non-communicable diseases, NCDs, communicable diseases, CDs, and injuries tend to kill us at very different ages. NCDs have a high average age of death of 72 years, killing few young people and many more old people. In stark contrast, the average age of death from CDs is less than half that age, a mere 35 years. But this average conceals the fact that CDs mostly kill the very young, who have not yet developed strong immune systems, and the very old, whose immune systems are weakening. The average age of death for injuries is 47 years, with a more even distribution across the ages. The average age of death, or AOD information, can be combined with average life expectancy of people dying at those ages and the known percentages of deaths caused by CDs, NCDs, and injuries to produce a simple analysis of how much effort might be devoted to each. This would suggest that if our goal is to maximize HLE, we should devote about 40% of our health resources toward CDs, 50% to NCDs, and 10% to accidents. It also suggests that we should focus our efforts on the largest causes of death and those that befall the youngest within each of these categories. Of course, the main thing missing from this analysis is the relative ease of actually reducing the various causes of death. It clearly does us no good to devote time, thought, and effort to fighting various causes of disease that can't be reduced or eliminated. Our ability to reduce mortality does vary across the three categories. Currently, it's probably easiest to make progress in treating CDs, while providing medical care and antibiotics to treat CDs is logistically and economically challenging. It is well within our means. Next easiest is probably to focus on injuries with continuous improvements in safety. We can encourage safe behaviors such as avoiding unnecessary risks, wearing helmets, and driving defensively, or using walkers where necessary, and using technology and regulations to make traffic safer. We can also help everyone to avoid falls and seek counseling if and when they start to consider suicide. The last and most difficult is to postpone NCDs by changing the behaviors that cause them, quitting smoking and drinking and adopting healthy diets and exercise, providing clean energy and air, and exploring ways to cure them. Not only are these behaviors devilishly difficult to change, but since most major NCDs become much more common with age, it's very difficult to postpone them for long. Considering these factors would cause us to place relatively more focus on CDs and injuries and perhaps reduce the focus on NCDs accordingly. But even these proportions are probably not optimal because our capabilities are advancing rapidly. In future videos, we'll provide much more precise information about how new technologies and medical advances might impact specific diseases, making this analysis much more sophisticated. New technologies and medical advances offer the prospect of eliminating CDs, curing NCDs, and even curing aging itself. The likelihood that we'll make faster progress in reducing and curing the causes of death suggests that we should increase the overall spending in addition to dividing it appropriately, as the associated payoff in terms of increased HLE is improving. Today, across multiple countries, the resources allocated to fight different causes of death vary widely and are often not done with the expressed objective of helping as many as possible to live as long as possible. Instead, funding is granted based on donations and many other factors, including politics. We'll discuss the legitimate ethical issues this raises in future videos. For now, Dead Reckoning suggests that extending HLE is a worthy objective, and that all too often, this is not how we prioritize healthcare spending today. For example, one of the largest deviations in the US is that we spend over 500 times the amount we spend on aging on national defense, despite the fact that collective violence accounts for less than 1% of deaths, while approximately 3/4 of all deaths are aging-related. On a per capita basis, America spends $400 million on homeland security and defense per victim, while we spend $9,000 per cancer victim and only $80 per victim of stroke or heart disease. Another large deviation in the US is that we spend much more of our healthcare dollars on the elderly than the young. 35% of healthcare spending goes to those 65 or older, despite the fact that they represent only 17% of the population. And only 9% of spending goes to children under 19, despite the fact that they represent 24% of the population and have many more years to live. These are just two examples. We've got a long way to go to allocate healthcare expenditures optimally. While there may be many challenges to changing our healthcare to help as many people as possible to live as long as possible, using dead reckoning to quantify the potential number of lives that could be saved and extended by doing so is critically important to bringing it to fruition. So, at a top level, a reasonable strategy to enhance global HLE involves further leveraging the things that caused it to double since 1900. Continuing to focus on increased global wealth and the education and empowerment of women. Leveraging new technologies and medical advances, and accelerating public health efforts by devoting thought, time, effort, and treasure to avoid the current causes of death in proportion to their likelihood of occurrence and our advancing abilities to address them. We'll expand on this strategy in future videos. In the meantime, please hit the like button below, subscribe to the Human Life Expectancy channel to make sure you don't miss our next videos, and post comments for the topics you'd like to have us cover. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, as we say at Human Life Expectancy Inc., Hi Hua! Please, do what you can to help yourself and help us all to live longer.